Greetings, my cosmic scallywags, my cosmic rascals. We're meeting under an Aries full moon on the 20th of October, 2021. I'm going to turn that sound off. A little too much. Now, in these videos, I tend to talk some astrology. That's what's going on at this moment in time, and we are shooting this right under the full moon in Aries. In fact, the full moon was technically exact a couple hours ago, so I'm really slacking in my YouTube astrology. I put out a lot of my own personal opinions, as well as give some suggestions, recommendations, feedback, criticism of the New Age movement. A couple days ago, I put a video out on New Age movement, capitalism versus spirituality. That's going to be my kind of personal reflection, commentary for this particular full moon. Good to see you, Kaylin. And this is going to be a little bit more focused on the astrology. Now, quick disclaimer, I am an extremely mutable consciousness. I tend to reflect back what is the tone or the vibe of the current moment in time. That's why I like to do these videos live underneath the actual new or full moon itself. So quick disclaimer here, I'm going to be a little tongue-in-cheek, and what I say is not necessarily, this isn't a one-on-one conversation. You know, there's going to be some generalities and some humor, and I invite you to not take it too personally. Now, these astrology videos where I'm talking about full or new moon, they're guaranteed to get a fair amount of views. Whereas if I put a video out about literally anything else, it's pretty much guaranteed to get a half to a quarter the amount of attention. So I want to begin by saying, check out the video on the New Age movement and spirituality, because I'm actually very passionate to talk about these things. And yet whenever I do put out a video like that, I get feedback saying, well, who cares? And where's the astrology, Tim? Talk about the astrology. So for those souls who are really interested in the astrology, I'll just quickly lay out that, you know, today's full moon in Aries is a great day for your Bikram yoga, and, you know, really use that energy to channel doing your laundry. And a few days from now, you know, when the moon's going into Taurus, this may be a better time to meet for your bridge club and, you know, really bring some good food. And let me spout some lingo at you. Full moon in Aries, 27 degrees Aries, square to Pluto, 24 degrees Capricorn, Uranus, Yod, Venus, Mercury, quincunx, 150 degrees, trine, sextile, Scorpio, retrograde, direct. Okay, you satisfied now? Wonderful. Now, the big astrology that's going on under this full moon, and I'll mention here too that I'm feeling like a little jazzed up today, so apologies. You know, a little commentary on some of my astro peers out there that are just like in front of the computer in the same whitewashed suburban home every single week. You know, I'm amazed that they're able to be so freaking steady and have this, you know, just like same almost monotonous response. I can't fucking understand how that's possible from my own experience. You know, everything's changing all the time. So if you're watching this video, you know, 7 days after, sorry, this moment in time's already gone, and you'll need to watch somebody else's video. Now, Mercury station direct 10 degrees Libra, Jupiter station direct 22 degrees Aquarius just a couple days ago. Now we've got this full moon in Aries opposite to Sun and Mars in Libra square to Pluto. And by the way, this is all just going to be spontaneous, like on the spot. I'm just looking at the map of the full moon and I'm going to talk about it. Now, what a lot of my peers out there in the pop astrology world do is that we break apart the astrology and we talk about those parts. And this is important. It's important to understand the dynamics of the parts and the pieces. The more challenging dimension of astrology is putting all the parts together into a highly unique and specific moment in time. So many of my so-called astrologers out there, they just simply repeat year after year. Oh, Venus in Libra means this, Mars in Sagittarius means this, the full moon in Libra means this, and the new moon in blah, blah, blah means this. And it's literally just repeating every single frickin' year. So what's very unique about this particular full moon is that we've got the full moon in Aries, square to Pluto, opposite to Mars, while Mercury is stationing direct in Libra, opposite to Chiron in Mars sign of Aries. There's also a very interesting relationship between these planets in Libra, Mercury, Sun, Mars, ruled by Venus in Sag, ruled by Jupiter in Aquarius, ruled by Uranus in Taurus, and that goes back to Venus in Sag. So there's this trinity relationship between Venus, Jupiter, and Uranus that's going on right now. Again, Mars is extremely highlighted, ruling this full moon in Aries. And this full moon, as we already can gather through my tone, it's a little bit rough around the edges, reactive. There can be anger, reactivity. There can be frustration. That frustration should be embraced as a creative tension that can generate change, that can allow for freedom. Now, when we're dealing with this Libra-Aries polarity, and by the way, those of you who are actually tuning into the lunar cycles, what we are exploring is reality through polarity. In fact, all of our experience in life can be understood through polarity. So the last new moon in Libra was setting the tone for a relationship, harmony, collaboration. How can we all get along? How can we have a balance of give and take? Libra is a commonly misperceived sign because it is oftentimes said to be the sign of relationship. It's where people are orienting their, learning experience through the exploration of another person. Libra, we're learning through the reflection of other people's value systems. It's all about learning about others' values. But what's not mentioned enough about Libra is it's the sign in which we're actually learning the balance between self and other. So ideally, Libra is not losing our self or our individuality to become absorbed into another person or another person's value system. This, of course, is the shadow and the struggle of the sign of Libra. But ideally, Libra is about the integration of self and other in a collaborative, creative, harmonious, and mutually supportive type of way. Now, when we get into Aries themes, Mars themes, we're dealing with freedom, individuality. What is our unique desires? What is our unique value system? And this is where Mars can be the sword of separation, or the courage and the confidence to lead or trailblaze in new directions via what is largely an instinctual, reactive need to open doors, trailblaze, initiate, or carve paths open. So full moon in Aries can be themes of separation, can also be themes of reactivity. Mars, which is again highlighted under this full moon, is our sexuality. Now, I could open a whole can of worms here on Mars and sexuality, the relationship between Mars and Pluto. I'm just going to summarize here by saying our individual desires, our individual needs for freedom, which will be unique per every case and every individual, including our unique sexual tastes and sexual desires, is connected to our soul, is connected to our evolutionary journey. And through the sign of Aries and the planet Mars, there is always a need to have healthy autonomy and healthy freedom, so to be able to have the open road to explore these desires necessarily. This is actually something that allows our soul to grow and develop. Mars is our body, our sexual instincts and reactions. And those instincts and reactions are actually the leading edge of our soul's evolution. This is where spirituality can be extremely troubling, not to mention our recent human history and how bad that went. Because if we deem sexuality as wrong, if we say it's selfish to have particular needs for autonomy or freedom, we actually suppress our nature, we form distortions. This is where we get into real anger issues, real, burning the bush type of reactivity. So we actually need to have the freedom to explore our instinctual desires. We need to honor anger, why we will have instinctual reactions, what parts of us are being suppressed or ignored, and need to be allowed this necessary freedom or autonomy. Now again, under such circumstances, this can be a period of time where there is an exploration of separation, or at least an exploration of individuality within relationship. Because as I said during the new moon, the intention we want to sow during this time is not freedom from relationships, but rather freedom within relationship. And for each and every one of us, this is going to be a time period where we can really, really be learning and expanding through the mirror and the reflection of the other. And that brings us to our recent Mercury station, 10 degrees Libra, exactly opposite Chiron. Well, almost. 9 degrees 54 solar arc minutes of Aries. Now, Chiron, I want to mention, can be experiences that sometimes hurt. And that doesn't mean this has to be a hurtful time. It doesn't mean this has to be a time where there are separations or we're doomed to separate, or, these are the fearful things that come up when I mention these realities. This is rather going to be an opportunity to have some very deep conversations about our individual needs within the context of groups or relationships. And this does not, of course, simply mean romantic relationships either. It is about how can we honor our individual path through life and be supported in that. And this is what relationship is really about, is it not? It is about us creating this safety to be the individuals that we are, where neither is suppressing, avoiding, or denying our own inner self, our own inner needs, our own inner value systems, and this is easier said than done. What I normally observe in relationship is that there's a bit of a pendulum swing. We have to exert our own willpower to stand up for ourselves and to speak courageously about our own desires and our own needs. And sometimes this is saying no, right? Sometimes this is to be disagreeing in the effort of creating true harmony and balance. So we actually need to disagree in our relationships in order to have agreeable ways of relating. And what I tell so many people in my readings, and I'm so grateful and so lucky to have the vantage point of an astrologer where I'm meeting thousands of people and getting thousands of case studies, is I get to see where our society and culture is lacking and where there's advantages. And something that's very lacking is we don't understand relationship at all in this day and age. We barely understand sexuality. This is actually frighteningly new to our species' consciousness, culturally and societally. So there's this glamorization of relationship. Oh, Walt Disney fantasies, being together, joint at the hip, side by side, lovers through life, inseparable, always on the same page. And I've never met a single healthy relationship that's actually this way. These are dreams. These are fantasies. And I see a lot more sacrifice or conforming to create the image of that dream or that sense of harmony, where that can be quite misleading or it can be inauthentic. And this is another shadow Libra dynamic, is that we're suppressing our own individual needs, or we're ignoring our anger, or we're ignoring those little frustrations because we may not know why. I mean, Mars is the body reactivity. Pluto is this real deep unconscious reactivity, and we feel this frustration. We don't always know why. So we don't need to always be agreeable. We don't always need to be polite. We don't always need to keep it nice on the surface. And no matter what they do, oh, it's always an accident. They didn't mean to do that. No, I mean, we got to be real. We got to talk about our differences. And we got to talk about the points where we do meet and the points where we don't meet. And we want both. That's a healthy relationship. A healthy relationship is that I don't agree with you at all in these areas. I don't have those desires. I don't care to really, spend so much time in an area you may care to spend a lot of time. And rather than that being a sign of failure, that's where we're actually going to learn and grow how we can support one another as individuals, which is what real love is about. The other thing I'm also constantly sharing, which is actually a part of the Rasa Leela mythos, is that union and separation increases love to grow. If we don't bring in a natural separation into our relationships where we're both free to go in our own ways, well, then we're going to suffer. We're going to start to feel lonely when we're together. We're going to start to forget who the other person is, even when they're in close proximity to us all the time. These are symptoms of too much proximity, too much closeness. And this is a natural phenomenon, not a sign of failure. We don't have to look like the American dream on the billboard. These are the things that cause more pain and suffering than what is really necessary. But as I mentioned, Chiron can hurt. We can feel misunderstood sometimes, or we may have a deeper story to reflect upon here, or we may be processing these prior relationships and these prior separations, and how there's always going to be themes that reflect similar dynamics in all of our relationships. Because another thing that's common is people will run away from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next. When we understand the zodiac and polarity, we tend to see where we're a little bit more leaning in one direction other than the other. And this is just a way to embrace our nature. It's not saying that we have to necessarily be more Libra or be more Aries. There are more Libra and Aries people. This is again why in relationship we have to honor these differences and not just smooth it all over so we're exactly the same. And that's part of what I addressed in this New Age spirituality video, is the cult-like pressures that we tend to experience from these groups. You know what I would love to see? And we get a taste of this in India. I mean, most of us who are into spirituality have a very special place in our heart for India. It's this amazing home of the heart of the world and humanity, and has managed to preserve a great diversity of spiritual paths and understandings, while that diversity of different spiritual paths and understandings are in very close corners in India. So we see the full spectrum there. We see the history of all these different branches of schools and beliefs competing. And it gets very political. And, in one school, voidism is considered bad and personality is, considered good. And those who see God as a person, well, God's really just a void and it's really just the light. So that's inferior. And then, of course, the other school has the exact opposite belief. Well, if the Mayavadis with their voidism, well, they just don't understand the personal relationship to God. So anyways, you get this competitiveness, you get this friction. But you also see the truly evolved saints who come from a much higher vantage point. They don't even necessarily take a side or will have a particular school of thought, because there's this understanding that there's this incredibly tasty beauty to being able to see outside of ourselves a spiritual path that's completely different than the one that we may be on. And that completely different spiritual path is not wrong, even though it is completely different, to the point of not even being able to relate to it, to the point of not even being able to comprehend it. That's real life. That's not a misunderstanding. We're not supposed to see everything totally even and even the playing field, and we all practice the same things and we all have the same faith. This is again where people sacrifice and lose their individuality And everyone suffers when this takes place. How many of you grew up in a Christian household where the goal was to sacrifice to love? You got to string yourself up on that cross to show your love for other people. And then, you know, the children grow up not having a mom or a dad, or knowing what their mom or dad like, or who they are as people. Because all they're doing is sacrificing themselves and laying themselves low for the child or for the other. So we don't have to do this. I think it's, you know, it's like what I would love to see in the future, more over here in the West, is this appreciation for the diversity of different cultures and paths. So we could actually get to this stage of recognizing that this is the grace of God, that we get to see and experience all of this diversity of different life forms on different paths. And there's gonna be different tribes, and there's gonna be different cultures. And we shouldn't be trying to convert or condemn other people of other paths and other cultures to our own, so that way we're on the same page, we totally understand each other, and everything's totally agreeable. We do need to honor the Aries need for autonomy. Now that's what I'm seeing, putting together all these different signatures at the same time in this chart, is we see the moon's north node is completing its transit of Gemini, which has been ongoing the last year and a half, ruled by Mercury stationing direct in Libra opposite to Chiron. We get to learn about the diversity of different people and different consciousness. And there is a Tower of Babel challenge, that we do speak different languages, that we do have different value systems, but this is the opportunity to learn more about who we are, what we value, the special and unique plate that we bring to the overall banquet. Yeah, the overall potluck. We are going to bring something different. And, you know, maybe I'm bringing frickin', you know, I wanted to think of, because it would have been funny, but anyways, I'll just say breakfast cereal to the potluck, and fine. You know, I'm not as great as a chef as some of my peers out here in North Carolina, so the potlucks are humbling experiences for me. But the point is I bring something different to the table. And that's what we want to see. That's where we want to appreciate one another, because then we can do exchange. Then we can do relationship. And we're honoring this need for freedom and this need for differences. And so what I suggest is that we explore this, not just intimate relationships, the groups, the people that we're connecting with. What are those rituals that we do that bring mind and we're fighting for, or the intentions of the group that brings us together into that single mind? You know, this is the essential magic in the coven, or you know, the spiritual intentional community, is that we get to access this group mind, and there's this tremendous magic that comes through the connection to the actual existence of the group mind. This is not just an idea, this is a reality. And from that reflection, we can also create the intentions and the rituals that are separation rituals, where I go off and do my own thing that's my own. Or I, you know, travel and connect with people on a completely different dimension, so I can get filled up in all of my different needs, in all of my different desires, which is going to require more than just one person. I'm going to add here. This is a part of the North Node in Gemini reality, is that we live in nature that is diverse. And we require the diversity of others, places, people, just like we require more than just one food group, right? We require this diversity to maintain our healthy individuality, which will be a composite of different parts. And we compartmentalize these different parts of ourselves in different ways, and we're exploring now through the mirror and the reflection of the other, how can we bring all of our parts online? And where can we do this together, or how can we bring this into the group, and where will there be parts where we will need to outsource, connect with other groups, connect with other people in order to maintain a healthy autonomy, in order to not lose ourselves due to an over proximity to a particular person, place, or thing. Now, due to Jupiter stationing direct in Aquarius, what I am praying and hoping and feeling in my heart is a possibility that can come out of all of this exploration is this beauty, just like how in India there's all of these different spiritual paths and these different parts, but we get to learn more about God by being in awe. I can't understand this other path. I can't understand this other way of being. And so we look to that with this awe and this inspiration. There is this ability for us to come together in this cosmological macroorganism where we're not supposed to see or understand it all, but we understand our home and we understand our place in the world by knowing what is our healthy individual nature and autonomy, and then offering that back to the whole. This is what I would say is the healthy balance and integration of the entire zodiac, and we get there through the constant repetitions and living all the different parts at different periods of time until we eventually learn to integrate these parts together, which is the understanding of what we're born as, the talents and traits that we're born with. We are all born as different individuals, then we have to discover that individuality. That means that we will have to separate sometimes in order to discover and uncover what is uniquely ourselves, or to pull ourselves out of oppressive dynamics where not all of ourself is being seen or heard. But where that can come full circle is in the recognition of our God-given talents, offering those talents back to the world in a way that brings in some type of service or offering. And that is what connects the individual to the collective in a way that brings more fulfillment than any other possibility, is when we as individuals are connecting to the whole by being the function that we were born to be. I've used the analogy of each of us being like a unique organ in the macroorganism. Some of us are kidney function, some of us are lung function. Lungs are not comparing themselves to kidneys. We don't have to understand the world of a kidney if we are a lung. But when we are doing our thing in our own way, and we're honoring our desires, because what will be our unique service, function, and offering will satiate us, will be natural for us. It will honor what is in our hearts. It's not going to go against the grain of what's in our hearts, what we're meant to do. This is why astrology becomes useful, because I can reaffirm someone's life, their soul, their journey, and their heart and soul agrees and understands. And it provides a tremendous validation, because it's just like, whew, I'm not supposed to be what my daddy trained me to be. That's what my astrology readings usually end up becoming, is you don't have to be what your daddy forced you to be. Whew, well, that's good. I get to be what I want to be, and that's where I actually actualize my greatest gifts. That's where I end up becoming the most appreciated, because we're being authentic. We're not faking. We're not selling out. That's where there's this tremendous opportunity for healing. So Mercury and Jupiter having just stationed direct can bring a tremendous clarity, tremendous awareness to what's not working, what isn't, what is, what isn't, where do we have loose ends that need to be resolved, and we can give each other the space and the time to go off and process where we need to, and that allows us to come back together in the space and time where we're more cooled off. I mean, my God, we need this under this full moon. It's a very frustrating, reactive full moon. And there is this exploration of other people's value systems with this full moon ruled by Mars and Libra opposite to the full moon. There's this back and forth, self and other, but we are learning through the courage to explore someone else's world, someone else's value system, and to really get a sense of their sense of taste. And then to bring that into a necessary compare, contrast with our own value system, our own desire, and where do we meet? And how can we therefore collaborate? And this can be an extremely collaborative time. But I mentioned this trinity between Venus, Jupiter, and Uranus. There's a need to explore. And this is where we get to mutual meaning. There can be a meeting of the minds here, but it's not because we're becoming identical. It's because we're discovering through this exploration, where is there shared meaning? Where is there an idea, a humanitarian endeavor, a philosophy, a truth? And it doesn't have to be a conclusive truth or philosophy. It can be a continued exploration. And this is where there's a fair degree of experimentation necessarily. Where we see Mercury and Venus this week, quincunx to Uranus. This is actually forming boomerang yod with asteroid Vesta in Scorpio opposite to Uranus. And this is going to open up some of the coming months, this chapter where we're going to continue the shadow work. We're going to continue to dig up and expose the deeper unconscious material. This is going to be exploring sexual desires. This is going to be exploring where we have magnetic attraction and repulsion, the things that we are obsessed with, like, oh my gosh, I want to do this, I want to share this, I want to have this experience. That's Scorpios. This, even if it doesn't make sense to us, right? I've talked about how sexual fetishes are connected to the unconscious, to the soul's healing. And, we may not even understand, wow, I really am attracted to this, and that's pretty weird. Well, we need to explore that. And that ends up being connected to our soul's healing. This is how we liberate ourselves from being closeted or having to hide from the world. We need to have safe spaces to explore the deep, complex, murky, sometimes scary to us places. Well, we're going to continue to explore those parts and places these coming months. And this is where there can be so much healing. And this is where there can be, with this really interesting yod, it's like we can form a temple space that's intimate, that's safe, that allows for this exploration, that's a little bit exciting and boundary pushing and bringing light into the darkness, and a little bit psychotherapeutic and shining a light on the dark so we can talk about it. And this is where there can be this tremendous healing. I mean, my God, what I am digesting and processing this year that's so surreal and so profound, that's in line with everything that I'm sharing here, is that, wow, I get to do stuff that's really, really tasty and exciting. It's not even that hard. It's pretty simple. It's pretty common sense, at least to me, because it's who I am and it's what I've been exploring since I was a child. But this is really valued in the world. And when we go into those places that others dare not go into, we discover these gems and these treasures that are new to the world and exciting and valuable and profitable. And we can bring it to the show and tell or the lemonade stand or the Zoom meeting and really learn how to generate a sense of abundance and support in relationship and with money. This is all the Venus stuff, Uranus and Taurus. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of experimentation going on this year to bring forward this reality. And this is where I'm telling everybody, be daring. Push on those boundaries. Be willing to experiment. Be willing to set down your 9-to-5 job and try something out. We do have to keep our head on our shoulders and not be totally crazy and give everything away and end up homeless or penniless. But the point is, I would suggest facing those fears and doing something different or something risky to discover this new creative potential that can be so profoundly liberating. Because when we're talking about Scorpio stuff, I mean, these are the things missing from our world and culture. I've talked about, how sex work is still illegal, and healing through sexuality is very controversial even still. And how many people have PTSD from their sexual abuse that's extremely common, or incestuous situations, which are extremely common and not talked about as if these things are unusual, where these things are all pervasive. Or how many people have had the experience of abortion in a way that felt very cold or uncaring or just like a mechanical procedure? Or how many of us have had sexual experiences that were that same type of way? There's so much uncovered ground in our biology. Death How many of you have experienced a funeral where nobody knows how to do a funeral and it's just downright sad and depressing? And how many of you have experienced a loss in the family and there's no connection with that person because everybody's got to run away from that death or run away from that real grief because we don't know how to process grief, because we don't know how to remain in touch with our ancestors even when they leave their bodies, because we have all this confusion around life and the process of birth, death, sex, transformation. This is the single doorway that is Scorpio. So Vesta in Scorpio, opposite to Uranus, is asking us, how can we be divine pioneers in this time? To experiment, to discover through this willingness to explore, and then we're creating a sacred temple space to go very deep with this necessary safety and this necessary support and this necessary willingness to go into the darkness or to talk about or to share the deeper material, to have the courage to go there, even if it means disagreement, even if it means temporary separation or permanent separation, whatever it may be, we can honor these things with the correct support from the group or the therapist. It's the time to seek out a therapist. We all need therapists. Again, we can't just depend on our single partner to be our single therapist now through the rest of our life. We don't get enough vantage point if we're solely dependent on one person or the other person. We need multiple perspectives from multiple vantage points, because we're all like this multifaceted diamond or crystal, and everyone's going to bring in a different light. And we're going to learn more about ourselves. So folks, therapy is not a sign that you have a mental disorder or there's something wrong with you, and that's why you have a therapist. But that is the bias coming from culture. Therapy's only a century old. This is new. So we can gain so much through the reflection of the other in this type of more therapeutic, safe-feeling space. This full moon today, square to Pluto, is going to dig up some material via the reactions, via the frustrations. How have we aligned ourselves with the world? Where is our society? Barbaric, bureaucratic, medieval? My God. I mean, this was what brings us together in these videos, is we understand the day and age, the societal context that we are pulling ourselves out of a medieval age. Again, my video on the New Age movement and spirituality is to shine a light on these dynamics. It's not to say the New Age movement is a waste of time. I'm only critical of the New Age movement because I value it. I do feel more at home here than other circles and places, you know, being different and being interested in astrology, but we need to keep things moving forward, and we need to talk about what's working and what isn't. And that's a healthy relationship. That's a healthy relationship to ourselves, is it not? Those of us who are into astrology tend to be interested in self-improvement. Not everybody on the planet is. People who are interested in self-improvement find themselves in oppressive relationships with those people who are not interested in self-improvement. So these are one of these areas where we just can simply agree to disagree, and that being healthy for us, and that being the means to pull ourselves out of the frying pan of a potentially oppressive, abusive, or traditional way of being. And typically we're not living in the same relationships structures that our mommy and daddy had and showed us was the way since we were an infant child and mom and dad was God. And we're going to be attracted to those relationship styles in particular ways because they're familiar to us and because there's this healing that does happen through the family biology. This is again where Scorpio, the psychotherapy, can go profoundly deep. Now I'm going to start to wrap up here. Sun goes into Scorpio a few days from now on the 23rd. Mars will follow into Scorpio from the 30th to mid-December. And Mars in Scorpio, all of November through mid-December, is really going to be going deeper. And we're going to need the courage to go a little bit deeper, to face our fears, to talk about these more hidden desires, to shine a light on power dynamics, to shine a light on, you know, where there can be disagreements over space, the amount of proximity that we have to one another. We're exploring the phenomenon of claustrophobia so we can breathe in this divine dance between union and separation, how we can create these union and separation rituals, which is the healthy Taurus-Scorpio polarity. Scorpio is the willingness to dig in. We're going to merge. We're going to get intimate. We're going to, you know, osmose one another through our sexual fluids. This is what happens in sexual exchange. I've debated this with other astrologers. Yes, we do merge. When we have sexual interaction with another person, it's a soul merging that takes place through the sexual fluids, is actual Scorpio reality, and we seek that out. That's a fast path. That's a way to transform intensely. This is the tantric path, and the tantric path is not just penetrative sex either. We osmose and transform through coming together in an intimate, close proximity field with other people. This is the sweat lodge, is that type of Cancer trying to Scorpio, trying to Pisces, where real magic and real transformation happens on the soul level, but it is very intimate. We do open up and we do talk about our fears, and that transforms the soul. And it's intense. We can't be in a sweat lodge all day, every day. We would die. That's Scorpio hell, is it's too much, too intense, too fast, too deep, overwhelming, claustrophobic, and then we start to purge. Then we have volcanic eruptions and reactions, and that's saying, hey, need space and time to slow down, to digest, and to integrate. And that's the Taurus polarity of Scorpio. I can't wait for the next year with the moon's nodes transiting Taurus Scorpio. Man, we're going to talk about some great stuff. There's going to be so many gems and treasures coming out of this next year. Just you wait. I'm getting all excited already. But the relationship between the soul, Scorpio, Pluto, and the body and the skin, Taurus. It's like we need to have the slowness, and Taurus is like, let's have a good meal and let's just walk around the garden and have a good dessert and make a nice tasty treat. That's to digest and to integrate all of that transformation. We have to slow down to integrate. This is where sensuality becomes a healing path. Somatic therapy, enjoying and feeling pleasure. It's the actual experience of feeling pleasure in the body. The actual creation of space that is like a paradise, that's like a Garden of Eden. That allows for us to digest the intensity and the transformation going on the soul level. So we can really be exploring some of these themes in relationship. It's going to just open up doorways that are going to continue to unfold these coming months while we continue to take the plunge into shadow material. This is our forthcoming Scorpio season that is reflected in our contemporary Halloween period. But Halloween's a fucked up holiday because we kind of mock Scorpio. We like tease it like, oh, that's so scary, and witches and demons, and everybody gets dressed up in their slutty Halloween costumes, of course. Scorpio time. But it's kind of in an unconscious way. I mean, people are just going around and getting little sugary treats, and Scorpio time is when we can step into that world, right? This is Samhain. This is the veil getting thin. We can contact our ancestors. We can consult the spirit realm and ask for their support in transforming our reality. Scorpio is let's change the raw materials at hand. And this is where we've been in these highly Plutonian years. How many of you noticed that we all look different post-2020, Of course, this was reflected in the topical experience of COVID, which is ongoing. We're going to have the South Node transit Scorpio next year. I don't think COVID's about to disappear. But this was a Saturn-Pluto conjunction on the South Node of Pluto. I mean, this is a huge catalyst to the very structures of our consciousness. And we can see that. We can literally see that, how the structures of our own identity has transformed. That is the powerhouse nuclear fusion reactor potential of Pluto, Scorpio, Kali Ma. We call upon Kali Ma when we need to transform fast, and Kali Ma doesn't always bring us that transformation in a way that's comfortable. It's the willingness to experience discomfort because it's good for us, because it's healthy for us, and the goddess supports us in coming into a new level of fearlessness and courage. That fearlessness is required to step into the soul's potential, which is reflected in Pluto. The highest potential of Pluto is to show up as an inspiration, as a catalyst. Just by showing up, we can be a catalyst via our own inspiration and our own power with no ulterior motives. That's the high potential of Scorpio Pluto. We can really, really move through a lot these next couple of months. And there's always more to come. There'll be Venus retrograde in Capricorn at the start of 2021, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. The last little piece I'll mention for today, because I see I'm already ranting at 45 minutes. No, first I got to plug, because I always save my advertisements for the very end, and then people don't do what I'm telling you to do. And you know what's funny? We YouTubers have access to too much information. I can see that people only watch about 5 minutes of my video. That's the average time duration of people watching these videos. And that's a universal truth because people have such a short time span and YouTube's just like channel surfing. Hit like, smash that subscribe button, go to my community and sign up. You can join for free and connect with other like minds. You can join my Astro School for $24 a month. It's the dang deepest, coolest astrology ever. I mean, I've never encountered something that's more brilliant than myself. So my God, hit that subscribe button 1,000,000 times over. You know, I really don't like to say these plugs, but if I don't say it, people don't do it. People just do whatever I tell them to do. It's so sad. That's what these YouTubers discover, and that's where these cults actually are formed out of cult leaders. I'm not a bad cult leader, folks. I care about y'all. I'm not trying to manipulate you out of your money, but anyways, the hive mind group and the cult leaders create themselves because people are just like, tell me what to do. So anyways, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek and a little bit, no, seriously, you should subscribe. I'm in a mood. Don't worry, the moon's going into Taurus in a few hours and all you people catching this video hours late, you know, sorry, you missed it this moment in time. Venus is square to Neptune on October 26th, so I would say now through the end of October, there's this Venus square Neptune. And this is not, I don't consider this a negative transit, the way I see some astrologers just love to make everyone paranoid. Talent for some of us astrologers to make people really scared. There can be a romance here that can be very mystical and kind of fog machine-like, and there can be a bit of a rose-tinted glasses here as well. So we don't want to necessarily be in an all or nothing in our relationships. We don't want to be totally conclusive or put our eggs all in one basket, but this can be a very creative, a very heartstring pulling and tugging, poetic exploration of what is our purpose, what is our meaning, what's bringing us together. And we can go to the buffet table and explore all of these possibilities and explore all these different spiritual worlds and all of these different tastes and flavors of the heart and romance. And again, this can bring in a deeper sense of, you know, why are we together? Or what is the meaning of our union? And in our own personal experience, it's discovering this deeper sense of fulfillment by being connected to something bigger than just ourselves, a meaning, a significance that's tasty, that is rooted in our heart. So we can be more tuned into our heart. We can enjoy some good dinners, you know, next few days while moon's in Taurus, you know, enjoy your senses, have a nice psychedelic experience. And through that willingness to just, you know, be perplexed or mesmerized, enjoy the mesmerization, enjoy that spiritual uncertainty that is longingness to go deeper, and as we step closer to the heart, as we get closer to God, it's like that mystical finger beckoning us forward, and we get a little bit closer and it seems to get a little bit further, and allow that to be like a divine dance, like a peacock dance. It can be beautiful, it can be tasty, it can be enjoyable and romantic, and we don't have to take it all totally seriously at the same time. Okay, I think that I've said all that I have mustered up for today. I hope it was palatable enough. I'm wishing you the very best under this very heated full moon. I'm interested to see what's going on out there in the world with this type of reactivity, but use it. Take that creative tension and friction and put it to some good use. I'm wishing you all the best. See y'all in the community, or for those of you on YouTube, see you next time.